We got our little vibe going. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. We are here to talk to you about digital clutter. Digital clutter is postponed decisions too. Now, Barbara, for people who don't know you or that quote that clutter is postponed decisions, what do you mean by digital clutter? Well, first of all, what do you mean by postponed clutters, postponed decisions? I want to talk about that. Then I want to talk about digital clutter. And then I also want to talk about how we decluttered our digital transformation bootcamp. So we're going to talk about all those things on our Productive Environment podcast today. I am Andrea Anderson, CEO of Productive Environment Institute. I am in Carolina Beach, North Carolina.
And I'm Barbara Hemphill, founder of Productive Environment Institute, and I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we are so glad you're here. And Andrea, of course, that's my favorite question when somebody asks me, what does that mean? So it was something that I learned from closets when I started organizing over 40 years ago. And I would help people do their closets, and I would realize that they would pull something out of the closet, often something that still had a price tag on it, that they bought years ago. And it's like, oh, I might need this someday. And I began to look at that and realize it required a decision. And that's true with paper, piles of paper that you have on your desk. If you look at the piles of paper that accumulate on the kitchen counter, everybody talks about that. You know, the whole family dumps stuff there. And on the desk, and you look and say, okay, today's the day I'm going to clean up this mess. And you pick up any number of things, and it's like, oh, no, not today. And before you know it, the pile is on this side, is on this side. And then we move to email. It's like open, close, open, close, open, close. We don't make any decisions. We postpone the decision, and nothing happens. So those 4 words have been the core of my business and of Productive Environment Institute for over four decades.
Yeah.
So that was the first question. You asked me a second one, but I've already forgotten it.
No, you are. You actually kind of covered it in that. I said, what's how it relates to digital clutter. So I was just going to say that for those of you that don't know Barbara, she wrote Taming the Paper Tiger. She's been dealing with paper and helping people overcome their clutter issues with paper for decades, literally. I know she only looks like she's 30, but for decades, she has been helping people with paper clutter. And our entire team at Productive Environment Institute, we have a team of certified productive environment specialists. And when I joined your program, Barbara, that's what it was. It was paper. It was helping people helping people make decisions about their paper, whether to keep it, whether to file it, whether to toss it. And then there's, okay, well, if I do keep it, then how do I find it when I need it? And that is really the secret sauce that we teach is we call it a productive environment finding system versus a filing system. That's how we're different. And so that what you end up, in fact, your book, what is it? Organizing paper at home, what to toss and how to find the rest. So what you end up keeping, how do you find it? So we've been doing that for a really long time with paper.
Well, interject one thing here. It's like what we do as opposed to what a lot of people in our profession do is we're not making the decision for you. We're not telling you what to do. We're facilitating your learning how to make decisions and having the emotional strength to make that decision.
Exactly. And Barbara, you shared something along those same lines. You talked about the process of going through it. It is an emotional process.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, because when I wrote Less Clutter, More Life, the premise was that physical and digital clutter is a symptom of emotional and spiritual clutter. And so there's page 14 in that book is my favorite page. It says, what are the blocks? And it's got this beautiful photograph of this huge stone. Louise Wanier is the photographer, and it was gorgeous. And it was like, what are the blocks? And it's fear of making a mistake, fear of forgetting something, fear of offending something, fear of being irresponsible, fear of wanting it back. And so if you don't make the decision, you can postpone that emotion. But that's exactly what you do. You postpone the emotion. Instead, you have the emotion of, oh, I really should do something about that. And it's like a shroud or an anchor around your neck that affects, and we hear that all the time. And when people work with us to go through that emotion, they're just so amazed at how much lighter, and that word is used a lot. I feel so much lighter. That's a phrase. How many hundreds of times have we heard that?
That's right. That's right. And what's interesting about, we're going to pivot a little bit to digital clutter. What's interesting to me about digital clutter, I certainly feel in some ways it's emotional, but to me, overall, it's not the same weight of emotion as our physical clutter, as far as what the clutter means to us. It's emotionally exhausting, yes, because we open up our email and we have thousands and thousands of emails that we haven't looked at. And so maybe that's a drain. It's like, oh, but those individual emails to me don't seem to be as impactful as the individual pieces of paper and the files. What seems to be more of an impact, and what I'm seeing in our clients, is that it is just the overwhelm. It's just too much. And
and I think one of the big issue about it still is, do I need this? So it's what we call the art of wastebasketry. You know, how do you decide which of those? And to your point about digital being different, one of the things is that we are talking literally about thousands. When we're talking about papers, there's hundreds and sometimes thousands of pieces of paper. But in digital, so I remember one of our clients in the first bootcamp had 7 email addresses, and in one of them alone, there were over 100,000 emails. I didn't even know that was physically possible. I mean, I literally didn't know that was possible, but it now is. And so it is really about the overwhelm. So, but it takes it back to the core of saying, what is the real problem? The problem is, if you don't know who God created you to be or what he created you to do, it is literally impossible to make a wise decision. You can make a decision, but it may not be a wise decision. So part of the process is helping people uncover purpose. And purpose is the thing that keeps us going. I mean, the reason that depression is so rampant in our society right now, post-COVID, it got so much worse because being hunkered down for COVID made people aware about how they didn't really like the treadmill that they were on. They wanted to rethink things, and it just opens up a whole new world. And so a lot of people say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, getting rid of the digital clutter is one of the things that will help reveal it. But if you already know what it is, then you can apply that to getting rid of it.
Yeah, yeah. And what's interesting, I'm going to talk about a couple of angles here. One is when we're dealing with paper, Barbara, you say when somebody comes to you and says, and we see this all the time, it's like, I've got this box of paper, and multiply that by 10 or 20 or 30. I've got this box of paper. What do I do with it? And you say there are literally 2 options. And this is another way this differs in digital. I'll talk about that. So Barbara, what are the 2 options? If somebody has a box of paper and they say, Barbara, what do I do with this box of paper?
You either go through it piece of paper by piece of paper, or you throw it all out, because you can't take a stack of papers and make a decision about a stack of papers, because there could be a $100 check in it, or it may be all junk mail, but you cannot. And that's the thing that progress starts with the truth. And so the truth is saying, those are my 2 options. So one of the techniques we have people do is like spend an hour, go through a pile for an hour in those boxes and see how long it takes you. And then that gives you an idea. And part of your success is determined on how quickly you make decisions. And the big outcome that we see out of the people who go through our programs is they learn how to make decisions because they practice. How do we learn? We learn by practicing. We don't learn by postponing. We learn by practicing.
Right. And that is different. That strategy is very different when we're dealing with digital clutter, because I can sit here and tell you, after teaching the Digital Transformation Bootcamp multiple times now, I will never say to you, and I will never do myself, go through each and every individual email and make a decision about it. That is not practical and it's not possible in many situations. So you have to, there are tools. There are tools that help us
You
make
said
those
the right word. I was just dying to say,
yeah.
okay, here's another PEI principle, which came from my father growing up on the farm. Half of any job is using the right tool. And so one of the things that, and Andrea, that's her brilliance. She loves tools and she vets them and she tries them all. She drugged me into this whole digital world. I went in kicking and screaming, but I've learned so much and I learn every day. And it's half of any job is, my dad used to say, having the right tool, it's not having it, it's using it. And so one of the things that we do is teach people that there are tools that will literally help you sort thousands of emails very quickly.
Now, you don't get away from the decision making altogether. The tool helps you, exactly what Barbara just said. The tool helps you sort in a meaningful way. Now, of course, some of you might say, well, my email, Gmail I can sort, and Outlook I can sort. Those are not that, I was never successful with the ways that those regular email platforms did it. So we're not sharing the tools on this podcast, but there are tools that are specialized to help you sort in meaningful ways so that then you can make decisions. So it just makes the decision making process so much faster and so much easier. So you still
the word you use that's really critical here is meaningful ways, sorting in meaningful ways. And when we talked about organizing paper, we always talk about the magic 6 is a way to sort in a meaningful way. And so we have developed the same kinds of same system. We use the acronym for system: saving you space, time, energy, and money. And that's what that is all about.
And so and it's the same. Now, this is where it parallels again. So with paper, once we go through the decluttering process and getting rid of, that's like the first piece, right? Is getting rid of, making decisions and getting rid of things. Or making decisions and deciding to keep things. Doesn't mean just getting rid of things. But with email, same thing. We're going to declutter first. And that's what we recommend. And there's, we don't share the tools because everybody's a little different. And, we get to know you and figure out not what you should do, but what you will do. But once the decluttering piece is done and you've gone from, 5,000 or 10,000 or well over 100,000 emails, and you've gone down to a manageable amount, where then you can make those decisions as they come in. You can make those decisions daily, weekly, monthly, versus letting it all pile up again. And then there are systems that come after that. And those systems, it go right back to what Barbara, you just said, is like, why do we even have an email account in the first place? Or 3 or 4. I have found that our clients have multiple email accounts. Sometimes there's a reason. I mean, some people have business and personal. Some people have, there's subscriptions, it's fine to have a couple. But if you end up having so many additional email accounts, because I have found it happens when these email platforms, like I'll just use Gmail as an example, they give you 15 gigabytes of free space for each account. Well, then that's saving email and saving files on your Google hard drive or Google Drive. And then you run out of space. So rather than paying the $1.99 or the $2.99 a month for more space, you say, oh, I'll just get another email address. And so you end up with all these multiple email addresses. So now you've got 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 spread across multiple emails. So let's bring it all back to what do you need to accomplish? When we say accomplish your work and enjoy your life, what is your work? And what does that even mean to you? Some people in our boot camps, we have professionals, we have business owners. It's clear what their work is, right? It's clear what your work is. We have retired professionals, and their work is new. Their work is figuring out what they're going to do with the rest of their life, and they still have all this old stuff on their computer. Some people are now caring for aging parents, and their new work that they need email for is dealing with all the medical files and all the appointments and all of that kind of stuff that comes in. So getting clear on the purpose of what it is that you are trying to accomplish and using the tool of email to do it. So that's really important. And then from there, like I said, if you are dealing with mounds and mounds and mounds, we need to get a handle on that first, and then start talking about how to process. We call it process. Don't check your email, process your email. So those are some of the things that we do in our boot camp. So I wanted to talk about that. And then also, we're not just talking about email here when we talk about digital clutter. Same goes for our hard drives, your computer hard drive, your cloud drives. And as I just mentioned, if you have a computer, you have at least one hard drive, right?
And your desktop. Oh, and
Yeah.
your I mean, that's where it starts. Like, open
Yeah.
up the computer and look at the desktop first. So the desktop on your computer is the same as the desktop, your physical desktop. It's the same
That's
thing.
true.
And
Yeah.
one of the questions we ask people all the time, and this again went back to clothes closets. And I remember very clearly being with a woman in a clothes closet, one of my very, very first clients in like the first few months of work, and pulling something out of the closet. I think it did still have a price tag on it, and saying, "How does this make you feel?" And I'll never forget the look on her face. I mean, it was just like, and it's like I said, if it makes you feel anything negative, it makes you feel sad, angry, depressed, guilty, discouraged, you can't afford it and you don't need it. So in the closet, that's true. With email, if there's a negative, or any digital document, if there's something negative, the question then becomes, is there something I need to do about this? I mean, is this problem with this document related to a project I'm working on or related to a relationship? And if it's not, then then it really is clutter.
Yeah. And just like with email, there are systems and tools to help you make tools that assist you in making those decisions. There's ways that you can quickly organize your existing hard drive. Mine, I'll be honest with you guys, mine was a mess for a long time. I didn't pay attention to it. If I downloaded something, Lord knows where it went. If I created a document and I paid no attention to how I named it. And if you have like document 1, document 2, document 3 on your computer. So for a long time, it just didn't matter. I could eventually get to it. If I was looking for something, I could eventually get there. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, so here's an example of how, sometimes people say, if I could just get organized, and they have this idea that if they just got organized, then it would be done. Well, it's not. That's like physical exercise, right? Going to the gym for a week or 6 weeks or whatever. So I'm experiencing that right now. For those of you who watch the podcast often, I look different today because I'm on an iPad. I have never used an iPad before. My computer died and I had to send it in to the store and to the repair shop. And I had, ironically, the time before purchased an iPad thinking I really should have one and use one. I never used a touch screen, nothing like that. So I'm having to start all over again. I mean, the simplest little things, but it shows I have to look through it again. When I had all of my email and my documents on my hard drive, they were exquisitely organized. I could find anything. But then I started using iCloud. Okay, so then that brought up a whole different thing. And now I have iPad and I don't find them the same way. So we continually have to grow in everything we do. And in organizing, that's the same thing. It isn't learning it and then it's done. And not only, I think this is the most important thing that I've learned right now. It's learning and accepting and believing that you can learn. Because, sometimes I think, oh, I guess I'm too old to learn that. Well, I can always learn. I mean, as long as I'm breathing, I can always learn. And so often people think, I just can't figure this out, particularly as it relates to technology. But here's an interesting thing I learned with my husband with technology. He wanted nothing to do with it until he figured out that was the only way he was going to communicate with his grandkids. So we learn something when it is going to help us do something that we want to do. So in everything we do, we always start with the first step of our 5-step process, which is state your vision. So if we go back to digital clutter, it's like, if you're digital, programs work the way you wanted to, what would you be able to do? How would you be able to feel? And that's where we always start. And then that takes us to helping you decide what you will do.
And going back to what you said a few minutes ago about the desktop, your computer desktop. So when you come into your workspace, one of the things one of the very first things we do in your physical workspace is help you just move the current things away, clean it up, and it just immediately clears your head. It gives you that mental space. And then it's like, okay, you put the papers here and then we deal with them, right? We deal with them. Same thing with your computer. If you come in and you open up your laptop or you sit down at your desktop, and you've got icons spread all across your computer, what do you think that is doing to your brain and your focus? So that is one thing that that would be the first thing I would want to help you fix, is to clear that space. And so you're coming in with a clean slate and a calm mind and spirit to sit down and do what it is that you do to do your work. So interestingly, I want to talk briefly about, we said on our slide here, let's see, our title slide, we said, there's plus how we decluttered our digital transformation boot camp. So what do we mean by that? We've been doing our office transformation boot camp and a digital transformation boot camp for about 2 years now. I can't believe it's been almost 2 years. And our digital transformation boot camp is very different now than it was when the first time we did it. And it's got, the different iterations throughout, but we've just made the biggest change recently. And that is, we were trying to do too many things in one boot camp. So one of the things, what we realized after doing multiples, the number one main things that people were coming for and wanted the most help with and made the biggest immediate difference for them was the email and the computer files and all the drives that go along with it. So those were the two first things we addressed. Then we moved over into task management, project management, different apps, different tools, and everybody has different apps and different tools that they're using. And so we ended up doing a lot more. It seemed like we were doing the more technical, like tech support kind of things with, syncing up calendars and task managers and things like that. That all is still important. So what we've done is we are separating that task management and project management. Basically, when I say task management, that's your to-do list. Okay, all the things you need to do. We have separated that out into its own workshop because it deserves it. It deserves its own big focus. And now our digital transformation bootcamp, I'm super excited, is going to focus strictly on the email issue and the computer hard drive electronic file issue. We're running out of time because we would just get into it with the email and the hard drives and the files, and then we would have to pivot over into all of the other project management pieces. So we have decluttered our own boot camp, and I'm so excited to be starting it. Depending on when you're watching this video, we're starting on September 24th is our first day of our next digital transformation boot camp. And I will say this too, Barbara, you and I talked about this. If you're watching this and you participated in a previous digital transformation boot camp, we want to invite you to come back in at no additional charge to take this boot camp. Now, of course, our SOAR members, we have another membership program. They're always welcome to come back and take another boot camp again. But if you are not in SOAR, but you took our digital boot camp, you are invited back to this one so we can really focus on your email and your digital files. With that said, I'm going to go to you, Barbara, 1 second. I do want to say the successes that we've had with people downsizing their email inboxes in the previous boot camps has been astounding. We've had people go from hundreds of thousands down to zero. Now, it doesn't stay zero. There's still more work that has to be done, but it's possible. And the processing. So we really would just want to give those pieces the big focus. So what were you going to say, Barbara, or what are your thoughts?
Well, after the last boot camp, we're always debrief, like my husband taught me in the military, it's an after action report. So we did an after action thing to say and we realized that we were frustrated that we weren't able to provide everything to answer all the questions. And I was reminded recently, you've probably heard me talk about it if you've heard many of the calls and stuff is a book called Subtract, which I just love, by Levi Klotz. This book is a life-changing book as far as I'm concerned. And he made the comment that we generally solve problems by adding. And the illustration he gave that I love was he and his 6-year-old were playing Lego. And they had 2 towers. One was shorter than the other one, and they were going to put a roof on it. And when the father solved the problem, he added Lego to the shorter tower. The son solved the problem by taking off Lego from the taller tower. I read that and I thought, oh my word, this is amazing. Because, and now I'm working on a new book that I want to launch next year on this topic of how in our whole world, we always solve problems by adding. And by adding, we actually create more problems than we solve. And so when we were debriefing about the boot camp, we said, hey, we need to apply Subtract to our boot camp. So that's exactly
well, and originally we added. I said, oh, we need more time. We need more time because we're not able to get to everything. So we added a week and actually had contemplated adding 2 more weeks. And then we're like, wait a second, that's not going to help. So let's back it up so we've pivoted over to Subtract, which is exactly to your point of that story.
And I think there's one more thing here that's really important too. I'm taking it's an amazing class now to how to teach your brain to be more positive. And one of the things it talks about, which is many of my coaches have talked about it through the years, but I'm not very good about it, is celebrating successes. Because the tiniest little success moves us forward, but we usually don't do that. So by breaking this down into more than one program, it's like, okay, I've got this done. Now I can celebrate the success. This gives me confidence. Now I move on to something else, as opposed to, well, I did a little bit on all those things.
Right.
None of them are really done, but now we've solved that.
And I'm super, super excited about that. So a couple of things. First, I want to share a comment here from Liz. She is one of our certified productive environment specialists. She said, I find that decluttering and organizing paper and emails and desktop goes far to simplifying the to-do list. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is, again, and that's such a good point. All of the email and the paper decluttering and organizing, that's all to get us to the point where we can do things, where we can take action, accomplish your work, and enjoy your life. What is the work? And so that sums it up, Liz. Thank you for sharing that. I do want to invite you guys to a free webinar that Barbara and I are doing next week. So again, depending on when you're watching this, the webinar is going to be on September the 12th, and you can see the link here on the screen. It is also going to be in the description, productiveenvironment.com/webinar. And it is it's called, like Barbara's book is Less Clutter, More Life. And our webinar next week is Less Digital Clutter, More Life. So we're going to go a little bit further and more into detail on the webinar than we can on our podcast. So we invite you to join us for that and look forward to it. I'm so excited about this next boot camp because we have decluttered, we have subtracted, and we can really zero in and focus. And I'm thrilled for our participants. So that is all I have for today, Barbara.
I'll take it myself with the iPad, so I'll have it. It'll give me a chance to practice some more. So
exactly. So perfect. All right. Any other closing thoughts, Barbara?
No, I hope that you will believe that this problem can be solved as it relates to digital clutter, because we've seen it. We've heard wonderful stories from people who talk about feeling lighter and being able to accomplish their work. So we hope that you will join us.
Yeah, and I can just give you my own personal testimony in that I am so in love with my email system. I'm in love with my filing system on my computer. The file structure, I went through different iterations of it and I landed on something. And so many of our digital clients absolutely love it. At first, we were all like, what? Really? It's different. Just like we do our paper different than everybody else in the world, we are doing our digital files differently than everyone else in the world. And it almost like flips your brain around, but it's so great and so effective. And I love it. And last comment, thank you, Kathy, for wrapping us up. She said, the weight to be lifted is huge. Absolutely. Kathy Music is one of our certified productive environment specialists, founder of New Path Productivity. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you. Hopefully we'll see you on our webinar. And pass this video on to anybody else that needs it. Okay. Be sure to share.
Thanks for joining us.